I have to admit, I'm a sucker for direct-to-video sequels. There's something about being 5 Tremors movies deep where all pretense is abandoned, and we all know what we are there for: to watch some ridiculous action and give our brains a break for a bit. La Quimera reminds me a lot of popcorn flicks like that. This FPS is not particularly good-looking, well-written, or innovative. The action doesn't do anything memorable, and its acting ranges from mediocre to terrible.
Weapon! Sounds like a menace.
There is admittedly a certain charm to be found here, especially if you bring a friend or two along to share this rocky ride in co-op, but by nearly every metric, La Quimera is about as good a game as Tremors 5 Bloodlines is a movie.
Hey, I like that song.
Come on, where's the Tupac?
Which is to say, it's not.
Not a great look.
Set in the fictional South American city of Nuevo Caracas, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Outside the city walls, some sort of robot apocalypse that's never really explained is taking place. Inside, there are warring corporations and extreme poverty. That setup isn't a socio-political commentary so much as a throwback to 80s sci-fi, complete with these rigs that would look right at home on Ellen Ripley and Aliens.
Get away from her, you bitch!
As a new PMC recruit, you and your squad get stuck in the middle of some non-specific and uninteresting power struggle between corporations, leaving an equal mix of broken bodies and bots in your wake. There is some legitimately cool environmental storytelling here. My favorite by far is this area, named the Bone Wall for obvious reasons. A voice in your ear describes the desperation that went into building the wall as all hell was breaking loose, and it's neat to piece together how there was no time to slow down and help anyone who fell, whether that was due to exhaustion, injury, or dying from whatever encroaching threat drove the frantic construction. In fact, La Quimera would have been better off if it let the environments do all the talking, because once its characters open their mouths, it is rough. The dialogue is awful, with obscenity-laced tirades like this.
Oh, suck my dick! I shit on your families, you mama huevo, mama vergas!
It sounds like someone watched a Quentin Tarantino movie once and tried to mimic it without knowing how to make any of the lines land. The acting also ranges from a normal kind of bad to this.
Helena, always such a joy. Still a caustic bitch, I see.
I can't tell if it's purposefully campy or potentially using some sort of poorly implemented AI. Characters are very chatty too, and I found myself actively cringing.
Screw her.
You know, Daddy? You three look so vicious.
The story itself doesn't make much sense either. Apparently, saving a billionaire's daughter gets your PMC conscripted because you are afraid he will sue? Which naturally means the people in the PMC all have to get experimental and highly dangerous augmentations too? I wouldn't mind the nonsense. It's fine enough as a vehicle to make me want to go shoot robots. But the story is so clearly unfinished, ending abruptly after just a few hours without resolving anything. Developer Reburn unexpectedly decided to delay La Quimera on the day it was supposed to launch. And given development is largely based out of Kiev in Ukraine, the fact that it's still coming out at all feels like something of an achievement worth applauding. It's theoretically possible the campaign will have more of a resolution by the time it does finally land, but in the version we were sent for review, there isn't any semblance of a complete story. La Quimera isn't exactly shy about the influence Crysis has had on it. Early on, you and your crew gain access to exosuits, complete with energy-powered armor, cloaking, and scanning. That last bit is especially important. One quick ping allows you and your teammates to see any nearby enemies, even behind cover. That's huge when your weapons operate like a poor man's version of the Farsight from Perfect Dark, able to lethally penetrate shockingly thick obstacles. It's extremely satisfying to drop a bunch of orange silhouettes in rapid succession from sight unseen. That said, where Crysis tended to be more of an inverted funnel that pushed you toward open areas, La Quimera is decidedly about straight lines. Its levels are very linear, and your objective is almost always to clear enemies as you walk from point A to point B. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as a bit of a throwback like this can be a welcome palate cleanser in a time when wide-open gameplay is increasingly the norm, but it does all start to become a bland blur. That's because so many areas repeat the same cycle of kill the enemies, open this door, kill the next enemies, open that door, and so on. There are a handful of encounters that break that trend, most notably this gunfight on the slowly rising elevator, but they are few and far between. The gunplay itself is extremely basic, with the weapons effectively limited to a sidearm, shotgun, or rifle. You can't change guns mid-mission, nor pick up any temporary options like a limited-use power weapon. You're given the choice between conventional firearms and electromagnetic weapons. The former works better against humans, while the latter tears through shields and robots more quickly, but you'll be required to bring one of each into your missions anyway. Which one gets to be the more powerful primary weapon and which is relegated to your sidearm could have added a small strategic wrinkle, but the conventional arms are so poor against bots that there's only one right choice, which is too bad. The thing I like best about the fights themselves is the ammo economy. Bullets can become scarce, especially in later missions, which means you can't just sit in one spot and pick off every enemy by shooting through walls the whole time. I had to keep moving to either scavenge rounds off of corpses or find more ammo boxes, which was just enough to create some badly needed forward momentum during otherwise slow fights. As a private military contractor, you are of course paid for completing missions, but while there are things to buy between them, the progression is badly underbaked at this point. There aren't enough items or upgrades for sale in the first place, and the stuff that is here isn't very interesting. You could buy one of this very small number of generic guns, or invest in either of the two alternate versions of your exosuit's head, arms, torso, and legs, each of which have differences like improved cooldowns or increased medkit capacity, but those effects are all so small that it's hard to feel the need for any of them. The way you get money is a little weird too. In addition to completing missions, cash can also be found in containers mid-level. But you have very shallow pockets for some odd reason, hitting max money far too quickly, which is a problem I can say with honesty I've never had. That's too bad, because collecting more would have given me a real incentive to go off the beaten path. There are some of the obligatory voice memos people seem to leave behind in every video game, but I can't bring myself to opt into hearing more of this dialogue than I absolutely need to.
What's it doing all the way out in the zone?
Who fucking cares?
For as down as I am on La Quimera, and believe me, I am, I did still have a strangely fun time with it. That's due primarily to two things. First, you can play the entire campaign, minus the tutorial, in online co-op with up to 2 other people. A couple of buddies is the exact thing you need to transform cringy dialogue from something you'll roll your eyes at into a hilarious shared experience. Having another gun or two covering your back makes the combat more exciting as well, and the ability to do things like alternate who is doing scans so that you are never waiting on the ability's cooldown keeps the fights moving at a faster pace. The other quality that keeps its many issues from becoming downright infuriating is how short La Quimera is. It took me right around 4 hours to complete my first playthrough. That could certainly be a negative if you put a lot of weight on hours played per dollar spent or whatever, but it does make a stronger case for going in with some friends, having a ridiculous time, and then getting out in a way that lets you enjoy the handful of high points while minimizing the impact of the lows. Of course, one of the reasons for this brief length is that it's outright incomplete in parts, but it would need to be significantly fleshed out to justify spending any more time in Nuevo Caracas anyway. La Quimera is bad, but it's also a perfect example of how even something bad can have a bit of charm. The writing is cringy, the acting is embarrassing, and the middling but serviceable action tends to follow the same basic loop on repeat. But if some friends are riding this partially derailed train with you, there's still some fun to be found here. It doesn't quite hit so bad it's good levels of jank, but it could still be a decent candidate for an evening of goofs. That said, even going into it with the right expectations, I wish there was any story resolution whatsoever, as La Quimera is clearly unfinished in more ways than one. For more, check out our reviews of Tempest Rising or Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And for everything else, stick with IGN.